What a weekend we have in store in the Premier League. We just touched on Arsenal and Leicester, and let's see how this game will pan out. Manchester City host Tottenham Hotspur. Let's talk some tactics. So let's talk about the visitors first. They are in fine form. 6 games they have won on the trot, and this is how they have lined up in each, or mostly all of the games. So we have Lloris in goals, Trippier, who scored in the last game, a great goal against Watford, Alderweireld, Wimmer, and Davies at the back, Dyer and Dembele, the 2 holding midfielders in there. And this is what I imagine they may go with, because Dele Alli's fitness, he's been said to make a return back to the starting 11, and what a boost that would be. But nonetheless, Lamela, Eriksen and Chadley with Harry Kane playing up top. Now, going forward, we know that Tottenham can compete with Leicester in terms of how devastating they are going forward. And it happens to be up against Manchester City, who, as we know, were susceptible to counter-attack, specifically in the last game against Leicester. So how will Tottenham use the same abilities they have as Leicester against Man City, who may be a little bit more prepared, but I don't think they will. So let's look at how I imagine they will go forward. So first and foremost, what Tottenham do very well, specifically Harry Kane, is he knows exactly, I mention this in all my tactics because it's a go-to for a striker. He knows how to split these 2 centre-backs. And with Manchester City's 2 diabolical centre-backs so far, Demichelis and Otamendi, it's a lot easier to do it than you'd expect against other teams. But what he has been doing, Harry Kane, is he's been playing almost like like an attacking midfielder at times. He'll find the ball in this area, and their midfielders are so in sync that you'll see someone like Eriksen take up the role as a striker. And this poses a question for Otamendi. Do I track Kane in the middle? Do I stick back and mark Chadley, who's a right midfielder, or Eriksen, who's an attacking midfielder? That's the question that Harry Kane wants to ask, because he's one of the best strikers in the league at posing that question to the defender. So in him holding the ball, what you'll see off-ball movement is Lamela finding this run across here, which makes it so hard to track. They did it so well against Sunderland. They destroyed Sunderland. But one more thing that they do well, they flogged the flanks. They put forward people like Trippier, who scored that amazing counter-attacking goal against Watford, and it's just going to be a nightmare for Manchester City because they're consistently struggling against teams that are fast on the counter-attack. So Tottenham need to continue with that interchanging of movement. You want to see Harry Kane find the ball into feet here. And what you will see if Dele Alli plays is he'll do exactly what he did against Norwich, is he'll make this run in here, and it's hard to track. It's hard to track because when you're a holding midfielder, you don't want to have to track your fellow midfielder into the box because you're thinking, I'll pass him on to the striker. But it's that little moment of doubt that you propose that can leave your defence wide open. And Otamendi, especially Otamendi and Demichelis, are not very good at switching between their midfielders. I honestly don't think they communicate. They don't say, oh, don't worry, Fernando or Fernandinho or Delph, I've got it. No, they just follow a man. And that leaves themselves open. It leaves that gap in there in which teams like Leicester will go forward and exploit. So how do one of the Premier League's favourites bounce back from that criminal loss against Leicester? Leicester embarrassed Manchester City. But this is how I imagine they will line up, very similar to how they played against Leicester. We have Hart, Zabaleta, Otamendi, Demichelis, Kolarov, and in the middle, Fernandinho and Delph, Silva, Toure, Sterling, and Aguero. I'm going to touch on these 2 because on paper it looked like a phenomenal goal from Leicester. It looked like they just destroyed them in and out for that counter-attack. But it was all strategic. It was strategic from the moment Leicester pressed to what they wanted Manchester City's defensive midfielders to do, and they just fell into the trap. So if you imagine, I'm going to recreate this example here. The ball found its way into here. I think it was Fernandinho that had the ball. Leicester pressed like this. They pressed 2 players onto the ball. And then what happened is they were already caught above possession. All their midfielders were caught up. And what happened is Fabian Delph or Fernandinho, I can't remember exactly which one, tried to provide support. So he stepped up and he tried to find support in here. And at that point, Leicester had already won the ball. They won the ball. Mahrez made this run in here. Automatically, this space becomes so clear for Leicester to drive into. Tottenham will take that space if Man City are not smart because they're pressuring like a high-pressure team. But the defenders are not getting that memo because the defenders are still sitting back. I think I froze the screen at one point just at the turnover point when Leicester won that ball. And the gap, the real estate that was there between Manchester City's back 4 and their midfielders was huge. It was nearly the size of the field. That's just asking for a team like Tottenham to go in there and take the ball. Because what happened then is, yes, it looked all pretty, but by the time Mahrez had the ball in here, Otamendi had to make a decision whether to sit deep or come out. And of course, he's not the best defender. I don't know how he's still getting a game, but he just got left for dead, came out with a sliding tackle, and then that left Demichelis even further one-on-one. And it's those decisions that Manchester City can't make. You don't want your 2 makeshift defenders having to make that decision. So in doing so, you need to protect them more. Delph and Fernandinho need to be more in sync of who's stepping and who's covering that gap. Because if they're going to step in here like they did, get caught up, then the defenders need to be up here. They need to be all high pressed and then try to play the offside. Because when they drop back in here, they're just leaving themselves open to that gap. So although I want to talk about what Manchester City can go and do going forward against Tottenham, which I think they will have a chance if they free up David Silva, my main tactics for Man City, you can't concede goals like that. You can't leave that real estate open for a team like Tottenham to go in and just destroy you. So if Man City can shut down that space, they might not concede. Nonetheless, I think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be 1-1. I think Tottenham will find that space, but I think Manchester City will come back and get a draw out of this, even though they're at home. It might hinder both of their title chances if Leicester go on and win. Nonetheless, I'm excited to see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comment section below and on Twitter @Francis_Maxwell. Come back again and subscribe. See you later.